We are studying the book Alert by the Spirit Joanna de Angelis, psychography of Divaldo Franco. And we are already in lesson 51, almost 1 year that we've been studying this book. Each lesson is an individual lesson where we know that in these books, Juana de Angelis bring important considerations about things that can help us in our day-to-day lives, and is really a kind of alert for all of us to be meditating and to putting into practice in our daily lives. So today she's going to talk about our vulnerable points. And we, as always, are going to be starting with the reading and then the comments. In your weaknesses are the vulnerable points which you must clothe with strength. The vulnerable points represent the resistance of all machinery, the security of each individual. Inevitably, temptations will surround you, wounding your vulnerability in the fulcrum of your deficiencies. If you enjoy stronger sensations, you will always face them, attractive, involving, and tormenting you. So this is the way Joana de Angelis writes, okay? The translation is to the letter. Um, so is starting in this first paragraph, trying to bring to us the thoughts of analyzing our vulnerable points, saying that we should dress them, should put, look at them with, and understand that we have to avoid them, that we have to have the strength, the necessary force to avoid them. They are part of what we are, the machinery of life, but it doesn't mean that we should give ourselves to them, because each time more we are going to be, if we don't tackle them, we are going to be, of course, each time more vulnerable to what they bring to us in terms of sensations. They normally are very attractive. They involve us, but it comes to a point that when we have more awareness, we have more understanding, we know that certain things that are part of who we are still should no longer be there, and that's why it is going to be tormenting us, because it's something that we want to rid ourselves of. Up to this point, any comments more or question? Nothing? Okay, let's read a little more. If they catch your interest, greed and avarice, you will breathe in the climate of money lenders. If you are interested in slander and piety, you will always find imperfections and fault in others. This interest will go unnoticed by some. If you prefer indolence and self-indulgence, you will find justification for laziness and excessive rest. If you are fond of illness, you will note organic disturbances and deficiencies where others find resources to exercise balance and discipline. So according to how we position ourselves in terms of, this vulnerability, in terms of our personality traits, we are going to be, uh, bending the scale more to one side or to the other side. This is why she says, if we have inclinations for greed and avarice, we will be more in tune with the money lenders. If we want slander and piety, we will be finding imperfection in others all the time. And sometimes, we go to people, oh, have you noticed this or that in this person? And they will say, no, no, I never noticed that. It's because, those things are calling our attention because it's in our field of, you know interest, not meaning that it's a good interest, but it's in our field of interest. uh, and always we are trying to find justification for our inclinations. Oh, I do this because my life is so difficult, and what's the point? Oh, I don't have hope, or I don't have faith, or I have to rest because my hands or my little finger is always bothering me. We always be finding things like that, or when we have excessive worries about not necessarily problematic symptoms that we may present, that we immediately correlate with things that could be much worse. So this is how um, she presents some of our vulnerabilities. As you can see, all of them refers to moral, to our moral aspect, right? To who we are as spirits, not exactly as we are, related to our physical body. Because even when she talks here about illness, she's saying if you're found of illness, you will find everything is going to be representing an illness. And you will not see that perhaps you have this stomach ache or this headache today because you had not that much sleep, or because you ate something that it didn't agree with you. No, you already be looking for things that are more serious. But this again is, let's say, a fault of our spirits, and not necessarily related to our physicality. Questions, comments? Yes, Sonia.
And how important is to face about these points, because I believe if you want for winner transformation, it's important to us to know and put aside the justification to cover all these points, then to have opportunity to work in this point and be a better person. And because when we start to read this chapter, then I remember, love your enemies, because usually others use like to point this, use their finger to show us our difficulties or our challenges, because it's a challenge for us to solve these points, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely right, Sonia. It's also like they call it in psychology, the reflection, right? Sometimes what we see in others actually is what we have in ourselves, and then we point as failure of others because we do have that. And that's why when she says here, it calls the attention, your attention, but not necessarily other people's attention, because they don't have that in them. And in this sense, when we are talking exactly about self-awareness, and inner transformation, there is no way we can go through that without going through this assessment, to truly analyze us. And like I always going to be repeating that, okay, not with a name of, feeling horrible about ourselves, okay, feeling guilt, oh my God, I'm so horrible still, I'm so inferior. Yes, you are. If you had any doubts, I'm confirming it right now. We are, actually, not you are, we are. Okay, no doubts in relation to that. But we are already dealing with it according to our possibilities. So denying, to be living in denial is never going to help us to be kind of blind to our own imperfection. That's why sometimes I say, I don't know how people find time to gossip and to be focusing on other people's lives, because I have so much to be looking at my own life, at my own self. And again, this is not in a selfish way. I'm not saying that you know me, right? that other people don't interest me. It's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, when it comes to the point of, paying attention to faults, to imperfections, to achievements, to good things, I have to pay attention in myself. Like, even when we do a good deed, what triggered me to do a good deed? Was it something, or it was already something that it has already becoming a second nature in myself? So even the good things we have to analyze in order to repeat, and the bad things in order not to repeat. But there is no other way, like you said, Sonia. I mean, we have to face it uh, without fear, and knowing that this is the only way that we are going to succeed. Until we open our eyes, we're not going to be able to succeed, or it's going to be much harder, and it's going to be through much more pain than if I, deal with the problem as we should. Any other comments? Or
Yeah, yes, just that
yeah.
um, when we become vulnerable, as I've for a couple of weeks, I must say, confessing that I have become vulnerable because of everything that's surrounding me, especially your loved ones, and that's where it's the slippery slope, they say, that it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to fall because
Mm-hmm.
you're so worried about everyone else, and you kind of lose yourself in this worry. And this is how we become so vulnerable, and then we become you know not ill but not well, and you can't function, you lose it. um, but I am so grateful because everything that we've learned, it comes to play, but you have to be aware. If you're not aware, you won't be able to function, and you won't be able to know what's going on around you. So it's a very slippery slope, and scary at times. But thank God, you come back and you have to face everything that's going on, and be as strong as you can be. But at times, very, very, very hard to do, because you worry so much about everyone else, and you kind of forget about yourself, and that's somewhat dangerous in a way.
Not that I will know exactly how to explain. Maybe you can help me, everyone. But we are talking here about two different kinds of vulnerability.
Mm.
What you're talking about is something else, but not necessarily not related to what we are talking here. Because what Joanna de Angelis is talking here is more about the imperfections, the moral imperfections that we still have. The vulnerability that you are talking about is more related to circumstances of life
Uh,
that will catch us in moments that, due to so many things happening at once, and or harder things, because when it's with family members, emotions it always gets to us more strong. And but in a way they are also related to this vulnerability that Joanna de Angelis is talking about, because we can say that when we dismay with the circumstances of life, it means that we still are vulnerable in the field of faith, of understanding. And of course we are going to be, so right, because we are far from having this, perfect faith, and no, I know that God will provide. Look at the lilies of the valley. I love this passage, actually. Not even Solomon in all his greatness never dressed it like them. But yeah, it's so far from us. And I think that the only thing, and especially for us that have been studying so much and talking so much about that, is when those things happen to us, that we should try our best to be able um, to develop, or to this patience, this faith, this hope that we still lack. And there is no other way. Um, but one thing that I think we shouldn't allow to happen is for us to feel less because of it. I mean, we're still learning. We're still trying to deal with all that. So the last thing we need, the last thing we need at this, when we are going through, the struggles of life, is for us also to feel guilt, because I should be, dealing with that in a better way. Like I say, to us, the only way in our level of involvement that when you are dealing with those difficult problems, and being oblivious to them, is if you are a psychopath. Sorry about it, but I mean, there is no way we will not be affected by things. But like we always say, being affected is one thing, being sad is one thing, but getting into despair, going into, measures that are going to be more harmful than good, this is a different thing. And this is what we ourselves are already capable of doing. And this should be our goal. Not to cry, not necessarily to complain, but not to go to extreme measures on the other side. So someone was going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to kind of ask. I think that these temptations that keep showing themselves, so to try us, so we don't falter. I understand they are different for everyone, but I keep thinking, if they keep coming back, obviously it's something you need to work on, right? I get that. If you succeed on overcoming, one of those temptations, and succeed on working on yourself in the sense that they will not bother you anymore, do you think that the temptations will stop, or they will continue and you're just going to not see them anymore because they are not as important anymore? I wonder how, if the temptation is something from a past life that we need to work on, and or our friends that are there because they know your weakness and they will continue, and your involvement is just gonna not see them anymore, or if they will continue no matter what.
If I understood well, okay, then you'll let me know. I think that this what you're referring to, the temptations, it's and the moral temptations, right? It's very much like physical temptations.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, we have them, or physical addictions.
Mhm.
Whatever it is, okay. It doesn't mean the the old known culprits. Anything that we don't even think about, it can represent an addiction uh, of the physicality. So the same way that we have to deal with them, like first of all recognizing them, accepting that they are not good for us. Then it comes to the point that, old habits die hard, right? They are part of who we are. There is a physical need uh, for us in relation to them. um, it is going to be hard to deal with them, especially for a time, until it becomes natural, and
That-
little by little you rid yourselves from them. So when we are talking about moral imperfections, it's the same thing. They are part of who we are. um, Up to this point, they, let's say, up to this point, to this life, they were not troubling us that much, because you know everyone else is doing the same. It seems that the world is this way. Why do I have to be different? For whatever, whatever reason, they were not in our focus of attention, and they were considered normal things in life. Like, for instance, a lot of things that we are finding out, like uh, going to the sun without sunscreen. 25 years ago, 20 years ago, we didn't know that we need to be more careful to use sunscreen. Now we are paying attention. We are paying attention to our moral behaviors and saying, okay, I have to rid myself from them. But very much like physical needs addictions, they are also part of who we are, of how we react to things, um, when responding suddenly to occurrences. So it will come to the point of being aware of, until when we say we have to do something about it, and until it becomes really a natural behavior, it is going to be a lot of struggle, a lot of work, until we rid ourselves from the physical and the moral temptations, as you say. Was it what you asked, or?
yeah, I think it's more on the temptation, and the trials are there, and it's up to us to better ourselves so we
Mm-hmm.
don't get bothered by them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, my only question was, will they continue even if you better yourselves? Yes, they will, but you will not get affected, basically.
Yeah, and they will continue. And sometimes, it's not that you're not going to get affected necessarily. It still may bother you for quite some time, but you are already able of, being in control.
Okay.
Okay, for instance, for smokers, when we quit smoking, 10 years after you quit
You
smoking,
still,
you
yes.
still may feel like having a cigarette,
Yeah, that's a
right?
good, yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it's no longer necessarily a physical urge, but it's something that reports you to a past behavior or something like that. And I mean, 10 years after, basically, you don't have the physical excuse anymore,
Uh-huh.
but it's still, there is something that is going to tempt you to do that. So that's why I'm saying the temptation may be there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still hard for you to rid yourself from it. And so for a long time, many of our inclinations, I gave a physical example, but in terms of the moral examples as well, yeah, let's say that you manage, being a very patient person now, but then something happens that you completely lose your patience, and you're going to say, I mean, it's been 5 years since I lost my patience. Okay. um, Great, fantastic, but it is still something. It was just once, this once that happened, but you still see that there is something to be done, that is a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think in many things that we are achieving now, we have to think like that. It's a work in progress. Uh, at the least, you know, or the less we expect, we may fall. If we take for granted that in this case of, perfecting ourselves, we will respond as our old selves and not necessarily as we want to become. So that's why the those transition times are very hard, because we just making a parallel with life and adolescence to adult. You wake up to, like Orlando says here, to life's reality, right? uh, and we say, oh my god, life is much harder than I anticipated, right? While I was still a teenager, or had parents that look after me, or this or that, or even the society, right? Now I have to take care of myself. So we are at this point that we have just started to becoming self-aware, and already have to start doing something about it. So it's really hard. It's really hard, this transition period for us. Let's read a little more. Um, each spirit is placed where it should progress, linked to the resources it needs to overcome and repair the unfortunate commitments of the past. Reincarnations brings the apprentice back to the failed experience, so that the positive values that they should invest in the change of the trials that concern them may be fixed. Tendencies and aptitudes, good or bad, resurface from the spiritual past in order to be improved, becoming valuable conquests propel progress and peace. So first of all, let us talk here about the word repair the past. Okay, again, please never think about that as being a punishment from God. But always remember that we are talking about the best way for us to assimilate a lesson is to go through this lesson ourselves and experience them ourselves and see that they are not good. So if I don't want this for me, I will no longer do that for others. So it is a process of growing. We always say, um, for like this example for a child, if you put your finger on the outlet, you may receive an electric shock. They don't even know what an electric shock is. Perhaps they will do that just to be curious to learn what is an electric shock. What does it feel, right? But after you do that yourself once, you will not feel probably the inclination of keeping on doing that. So some experiences in terms of, and positions that we have to have in terms of experiencing ourselves, the harm that we did to others, is mostly for us not to continue in the same pattern, and not necessarily that we have to pay back. Okay, the idea here is not to pay back, it's learning by experience. We have a saying in Brazil that pepper in the eyes of others doesn't hurt, doesn't sting our eyes, own eyes, right? So I say, no, I can put pepper in your eyes. Yeah, until you try in yours and see how good it is, right? So, and here it comes to a point where Joanna de Angelis, very, in a very subtle way, says, stop complaining about your position in life. You're not there by chance. You will be placed in circumstances that are necessary for your own progress, that you have a commitment, that you have a responsibility. um, and this is why we are in this or that position and situation and experiencing things in life, because we have to learn from them. And of course, since our spiritual progress is still very, very slow, everything that we had in a previous incarnation in terms of tendencies and aptitudes, as she says here, somehow is going to resurface for us to improve. And remember, we may say, oh, it's a good tendency, what do I have to improve in terms of that? Of course there is always room for improvement. Right, you can be a good pianist, but still you may learn to be better if you apply yourself better, right? So in terms of what we already have, is still the same thing. um, uh, and the idea here, for also looking at the question, the first question from Orlando, uh, remembering the past is not going to help us. The details of the past, they always say, as the spirits always tell us, if you want to know what we were or who you were in the past, just look at yourself today. We haven't changed that much. We haven't changed that much in terms of, um, you know, uh, these tendencies and aptitudes. Um, and the dressing that I had is not that important. Well, I dressed a body that was from Denmark or German or Brazil. It doesn't matter. In the particulars and the details of this incarnation, what matters is what we really are. And so it's like, the Cinderella story, right? She could be dressed in drags, but she was a princess, and her uh, stepsisters that were dressed as a princess were more like in drags. So we have to look at the essence. So that's why saying, oh, I was a humble lady in the past, or I was a queen in the past, is not going to make any difference. The difference is, how was you as a princess or a queen, or how was you as a beggar, right? So this is why we don't pay that much attention to the, you know, the past events, and more like the past, what we were. Any more questions or comments? And again, Orlando, because you talk again about the remembrance, we have this whole path part on that talks about forgetfulness of the past and showing this uh, uh, how much more uh, harm they could do to us if we could remember things. One thing that I always think for myself, and I said a few times already, when I'm too curious about learning about my past, I remember that if I had the possibility of knowing my past, because God is good and just, it was not only me that would have this possibility, everyone else would have this possibility. And I don't know if I want everyone else remembering what I were in the past. Right? I don't, maybe not even 10 years ago. Can you imagine that, 200 years ago? Oh, I remember you burning witches at the stake. And now you're working as a medium. Interesting, right? No. So, um, even it frightens me, this idea. I don't know if for you would do the same, but it's not only you that is going to remember your past. Is everyone else that were with you in your past that is going to remember your past. So please no. We have enough problem on our plates, a lot of things to deal with right now, than to be dealing again with the regrets, the guilt from the past. And let's move on. It doesn't matter if in the first grade all my peers could write already beautifully and I could not, you know only scratches. Now I write like themselves. What is the point of bringing that and raising a frustration that is no longer even an issue? Okay, we want to do what we did in the past. Oh, we did a lot of silly things, horrible things. So leave it there and just move forward. And but knowing that is still what we are dealing with today is the consequences of what we did then. So let's go to another one. Your inner security depends on your inclination and preference. It is up to you to renew your strength and watch over the weaknesses that will be transformed with time into balance and vigor. You carry the inner mark of the offense you committed. Um, so here she's inviting us to be strong, to be very, like John Jesus said, pray and be watchful. Okay, pray brings us to a different level of vibration, being watchful, because at any point, we may even momentarily let prevail in us things that we no longer want to be. And it's inevitable that we do not carry in ourselves, in our perispirit, in our spirit, the offenses, the errors we have committed in the past. We know that from the books of Andrea Lewis and through Chico Xavier, they talk about, oh, look at that person, she brings or he brings the marks of abuse from alcohol in the area of the liver, or abuses in the area of the mind, or whatever thing we have done. It is there. Like you said, we cannot hide, spiritually speaking, who we are. We may have, the education, the uh, know how uh, to behave in society, looking like, a civilized person. But sometimes, we are more uncivilized than the primitive people. So, because everything is about the spirit. Any comments or questions? The Orlando asked about past regression therapy. Um, the only positive point that as spiritists we may recommend a past life therapy is if they are preventing you from having an ordinary life. You know, let's say that there is someone that is suffering from a very acute panic syndrome, being completely afraid of moving out of the room, going to the window because of, you know, the heights, all of that, that prevents them completely to live an ordinary life. Perhaps uh, past life regression that will deal specifically with the root of this problem may help them into resuming or assuming an ordinary way of living. Other than that, if it's just out of curiosity, the recommendation is no. It should be very much like, you know, treatment. You're not going to take antibiotics or, you know, analgesics if you don't have a pain. Okay, so in this case, if you really have a pain of the spirit that prevents you to live your life, then we have this possibility through hypnosis. But then again, you have to be very careful not to, you know, in order to look for the professional that could do that in a way that is going to be not damaging and not anyone that you don't even know how expert they are in the area. Any other question or comment?
Usada,
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. I'm uh, I'm into demanding justice of the spirit world, and you know, uh, through Facebook, and I want to know, will I be will I be punished for doing that, going against the spirit world? Because I
Uh,
mean, in some way, will they affect my life and make me pay price for that?
Orlando, there is nothing wrong in wanting more explanations, in knowing more about things. But we have to know that if we are not getting the answers that we want, it's because you still cannot deal with that. Okay, and we have to resign, and very much like, you know, if a 4-year old comes to you and asks to you to uh, explain things that only adults, and even not even adults, are capable of dealing with that, what are you going to say? You're going to go to them and no, they ask it, I have to explain to them all, you know, about you know, illnesses and death and sex and addictions. A 4-year-old asked me that, a 2-year-old asked me that, I have to give them the full answer. No, if we as human beings do not do that, because we know, first of all, they are not going to understand what we are going, they don't have the ability to understand the answers we are going to give to them. And second, they do not have the spiritual, emotional maturity to deal with that. So the spirit is the same thing. I understand the frustrations we may have sometimes of not understanding everything, and that the things this seems to us like injustice. A 4-year-old may say, I feel it's completely unjust that my mother or my father or my sister or my brother or my grannies died. Why God has to put death in the world? Okay, we ourselves as adults, very close to die, do not have those answers, do not understand. How can we explain that to children? So uh, because of that, the same way that we do with the little children that come asking for answers that they are not capable of understanding and dealing with, and we say, oh, okay, this is a curious soul. In time, he or she will have all the answers they need as they grow. The spirits will look at us and say, oh, this is still a child. I understand their urge, a very curious one. In time, they will also have, they will, or this child will have the answers they need, but we cannot give now. So, Orlando, they are not going to punish you for something that you are requiring, but you have to have the wisdom of and the humility, the humbleness of understanding that if you are not getting the answers you want right now, it's because you will not be able to deal with them, to understand them, because it's beyond our current state of involvement. In time, we will have all the answers. And that's why my next position will say, if I come as a child and ask something, how can I understand how a TV works? And my parents tell me, in a few years, when as you apply yourself, as you go to school, as you study about electronics and this and that, you are going to understand everything. So if I'm really curious about that and smart, what am I going to do? Okay, so the formula for me to get these answers is to study hard, to study hard, to get into electronics, and then I will have my answers. Now, in terms of spiritual values, it's the same thing. The answer is continue in this work, continue improving yourself, continue working for your spiritual improvement, and you will get there. So I would rush, speed up my pace to get there. Okay, so let's
Joanna,
yeah.
I just want to say thank you for your open mind and thank you for understanding me. Thank you.
Oh, okay, Orlando, no problem. I understand. Okay, so she says, depending on how you implicate yourself, you are reborn with the matrix records. Depending on the mistake, you will return to the familiar places where you need to repair it. Um, It is the same with ennobled actions. They induce you towards a spiritual growth with the surmounting of your own efforts in the great leap of the spirit. So, whether we are talking about bad things or good things, bad things we did, good things we achieved, it's our suitcase. Okay, I'll come back to my reincarnation carrying in my suitcase what I have achieved, what I have amassed in my previous incarnations. So when we say, oh, how come you have so much faith and hope and trust in God? It is something that we have been working to conquer for many incarnations. It's not just like that. It's work done. When we come with, deficiencies, sometimes, for instance, people will be very inclined to aggression or aggressive behaviors. It's something that has been with them for so long, and it's hard for them to deal with them and to read themselves from them. So it shows in us, and but it's a work that we have to do to read ourselves from that. Okay. And the last one, she says, do not allow yourself any disconcerting concessions or pleasures that anesthetize your reason and perturb your sentiments. Face your weaknesses, become aware of your vulnerable points, and you will see how easy it will be for you to resist temptations and to overcome the bad inclinations that torment you. From a physical perspective, let's say that you stop drinking. Of course, you should prevent yourselves from to going to a bar, to a pub. Right? I'm trying not to drink. I'm dealing, struggling to change my behavior in this area. I'm not going to go through to a place that is where everyone goes to drink. Right? So, of course. If I want to resist this kind of temptation, or let's say that I am in a diet, I'll go to one this eat all you can be buffet, 5 stars with all the wonderful food and desserts you can imagine, and you will go there and eat a leaf of lettuce, right? I mean, how can you resist the temptation? You may even resist 90% of everything that is there, but 10% you'll say no. This pasta or this dessert, I will not, I will not eat, right? So this is what she's saying. But then we have to know ourselves. We have to understand our strength. uh, like if you know that you can go to those places and actually not be affected by that, wow, kudos for you, wonderful. But if you feel that it is still vulnerable, or for instance, there are people that want to engage themselves with charitable work. Some people cannot stand working as a volunteer in hospital for children. If you wanted to do something, you wanted to do good, but you are very affected by seeing children ill, you are not going to do that. You maybe, you can do something else. You can work in a soup kitchen, you can work with the elderly, you can work in so many in schools for adults, or you can work in do charitable work, volunteer in a lot of other works, but you're not going to look for something that you still know that you can be affected by. And so this is what she's saying here. Be aware of small concessions and pleasures that may take you from the route, like saying, oh, just going to have this very tiny piece of cake. It's a small pleasure, small concession, but then you say, you know what? I already ate the cake. Let me have the cookie as well. Tomorrow is going to be another day. Okay. If you know that you cannot do that, do not put yourselves at risk of failing. And but then again, the recipe, like Sonia said to us at the beginning, is only not being afraid of looking at ourselves, at, you know, think well about and accept our limitations, saying, I know that if I go to, you know, this kind of place, or I will not be able to control myself, so I will not go. Be true to yourself. At the end of the day, we don't have to justify our behaviors to others. It is only between us and God. Okay, any question or comment at this more before we
And
finish?
we
Yes, sir.
cannot solve all our problems or focusing all our bad tendencies. We need to work each one each time,
Yeah,
and slowly.
yeah.
Many times something is slow, another one more quickly. Then, but if you face everything the same time and try to solve all our bad tendencies the same time, it's like a huge mountain. Then
Mm-hmm.
we need to improve step by step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what normally Zoraida says, right? Baby steps. I love the slowly but surely. I think this is the best way for us to accomplish something. If we start with big ambitions, we're not going to succeed. But if we understand our limitations, work at our own pace, saying, well, this is my target, I have to get there. Um, okay, I'll take a year to get there, but I will do in a year. And it's amazing because sometimes, you know that fable, right, about the turtle and the hare, the rabbit, the hare, right? So of course the hare is going to get there much faster. And so he has time to distract himself, takes the slowly but surely pace of the turtle for granted, and the fable shows us that the winner of the race is the turtle. So I love that fable, and I love this the metaphor for our lives. I only really trust in myself, and it's in people that goes slowly but surely. Everyone that comes with, you know, uh, like a candle in the wind, I know already that they are not going to have enough possibilities to do that and to accomplish that. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay.
Yesterday, Jusara, I read a little phrase that
Uh-huh.
is really, really nice, and I want to
Yeah.
see if I can find here for you guys.
Okay. That's good.
Okay, it's just one phrase. Is if it is not possible to take 2 steps forward per day, let us advance a few inches at least. I think it goes really well what you were saying
Yeah.
about our inner little
Yes,
problems.
exactly. I think in one of the books of Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, but it's exactly that. But the problem is that we do not conform. We always think that we can do more than we can. We are ambitious. We want to show others that we are better than them than they are, and instead of going slowly but surely, we try to do everything at once, and we cannot. Even if we succeed in doing partial things, in the long run, we cannot. So let's think about this. And I think, like Sonia was saying, if we deal with those problems with reason, heads on, but with reason, understanding, our weaknesses and strengths, we will be able to do it. Okay,